A very warm welcome to the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show. And today's show is an international football scout, which captures the life of an internationally renowned football scout, the former head of scouting at San Jose Earthquakes. And as a Brazilian, he joined the MLS side in 2017, but recently left to take on new projects. He has over 20 years' experience of scouting and coaching, spending almost 2 decades in the Brazilian top flight, Serie A, and with the Brazilian Football Confederation. Also a scout for the Brazil national age group teams. And in his role, he also helped scout and recruit some of the biggest names in modern football, including Neymar Jr. of Paris Saint-Germain, Philippe Coutinho of Liverpool, Gabriel Jesus, Manchester City, and Willian of Chelsea to the Brazilian youth national teams. Yes, folks, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome on the show Bruno Costa. Welcome to the show, Bruno.
My pleasure, Lord. Thanks for the introduction. Just a good update. Of course, Neymar moved to Saudi, and of course, Coutinho is playing Qatar right now. Willian is playing for Fulham. And Gabriel Jesus, it's a new Arsenal player. But those players, when there was those are players that I had the pleasure to participate in their development process while working for the Brazil national team. So I'm sure it's going to be a pretty good conversation, and everyone's going to enjoy it for sure.
Absolutely, yeah, great players. And of course, when you're working with them, they did go to those clubs I just mentioned, but yeah, they have moved on. But that's just brilliant, isn't it? That's what they do. Great players, awesome players. I mean, start from the beginning as well, Bruno. Your footballing life, from what I have analysed, started in 1995 when you attended high school and played soccer at IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida, for 5 years through to the year 2000, and later played Division I soccer at Florida International University. So please tell us more about your early days as a football player, and of course, were there any football successes and trophies while as a player?
Yeah, Lord. I'm from a small state up north in Brazil called Rondônia. It's on the Amazon area. I was born in Porto Velho City. My state is a border with Bolivia. So Brazil has 27 states. And I'm pretty thankful to be born in a place where taught me a lot of things. I had to go through a lot of things in my early age to succeed in life. At 15 years old, I told my parents, imagine 1995, there were no internet. I remember, even to speak to my parents back in Brazil, I had to call a number. I never forget it. It's a 1-800 344 1055. There was so my parents, they received the call in Brazil, and they had to accept the call. It was like $1 per minute, so it was crazy, too expensive. But that's how everything started for me. I decided to move to America for the first time, and I knew, Lord, how important it was to learn a new language. I knew that soccer and football for us, soccer in America, was going to be fundamental for me to learn a new language, get an education, and that's the beauty about America. You have the opportunity to play the sports and also get an education, and that's what I did. 6 months. I was supposed to only stay for 6 months, but at the end, I stayed 5 years. But when I went back to Brazil in 2001, and I'm sure you're going to go in there, I was, already kind of prepared for all the challenge that I had to face going forward.
Yes, absolutely. And quite right too, Bruno. You, as a Brazilian by birth, you did indeed return to Brazil in 2001 and joined the Brazilian Football Confederation as the team manager for the Brazilian youth national teams, where you assisted in scouting efforts. During your time there, the Brazilian youth national teams won 14 trophies, I'm led to believe, including the 2003 FIFA World Youth Championship under 21 level and the 2003 FIFA under 17 World Championship, making Brazil at that time the first and only nation to win both tournaments in the same year. That is some start as an international team manager at that level, isn't it? And scout. But how did this opportunity arise, Bruno?
Yeah, there was that's what I say, Lord, in life. Sometimes you got to take risks. So
yes.
when I left home at 15 years old, I was taking a risk that I knew was going to pay out, but you gotta be courageous. And on the other side, in 2000, on my first year in college, I had a full scholarship I told my parents I didn't want to stay anymore in college, and my mom freaked out. Imagine, like, what are you gonna do? You know, you've been working your whole life for this opportunity. But I said, Mom, I want to try to play professionally.
Yes.
I was 20 years old already. But it was funny because I had an injury, a knee injury. Of course, that's a lot of the guys that they gave up in the game. They say, "Oh, I had an injury," but I had an injury, and that kind of opened up my mind because I said, "God, I'm not gonna, um, I'm not gonna be able to look to my mom's eyes going forward." I made her a promise I was gonna finish my education,
Mm.
and I always had this football management on my vein, on my blood, like to be a sporting director, to become a successful, manager. But when I say manager in Brazil, it's like a general manager, right? Responsible for all the process.
Yes.
And I knew that was the right time for me to turn things around. I was like, Mom, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go to Rio de Janeiro because Rio was the only place in Brazil that had a sports management bachelor's degree. The same that I was doing in the US. So I went to Rio at 21 years old and applied for internship to the Brazilian Federation. And that's when everything goes back, Lord, on what I told you, like being able to speak English,
Yes.
and also being able to learn how to speak Spanish was a different maker for me, for my interest inside the federation. Why? Brazil is the only nation in CONMEBOL that speaks Portuguese. Everyone else speaks Spanish.
They do.
And when you go to Europe, when you go to US, when you go to FIFA competitions, everything's in English. So I was at 21 years old that had been away from home already for 6 years, that had been going through a lot of things. And when I took this opportunity, I just embraced as the opportunity of my life. And that's how everything started for me in the Brazil national team. And I was very fortunate that 5 months working for the youth national team as a director of football operations, Brazil won the 2002 World Cup. And the following year, 2003, Brazil became the first nation to win. Brazil became the first nation to have the 3 titles, FIFA World Cup titles at the same cycle. So Brazil won the 2002 World Cup, Brazil won the 2003 U20 World Cup, and Brazil won the 2003 U17 World Cup.
Correct.
After that, nobody has ever done it. Only England in 2017 won the U20 World Cup and the U17 World Cup at the same year. But there was really like a turning point for my career, for sure.
Absolutely. And also, of course, you were involved with the Brazil under-17s, who were also runners-up in the 2005 under-17 FIFA World Cup. So it's an amazing few years for Brazil as a football nation, because they love football, as we all know. So this is some journey that, you had undertaken, as you just kind of explained in a way. And in doing so, establishing yourself as a top name in football management, coaching and scouting. You were really starting to make waves, weren't you, really, to be honest, even at a young age?
Yeah, I really like the coaching side is something that I never really want to do it, So I have always been like a manager. Like the thing in England, when you say manager, they see a lot on the coaching side, but it's not different than in US and Brazil. Like I have been a sporting director, I have been academy director, I have been a scout and a chief scout, as you're gonna go through, and being able, and I like to be someone behind the scene, supporting the coaching staff, supporting all the management, to achieve their goals and to be successful. And that's why I love so much the daily work, and that's the difference between working for a club and working for the national team. When you're working for the national team, you have cycles, of course. When you don't have tournaments or when you don't have camps, you must be scouting, visiting clubs. You don't have that daily pressure, and for results. Of course you do when you go to the big tournaments, but on the national, when you work for a club, you must be dealing with issues every single day. It's a different dynamic, and that's why working for Fluminense after the national team was so important for my career.
Yes, absolutely right. And of course, during your time with the Brazilian Football Confederation, as mentioned previously, you did you did help and scout and recruit some of the biggest names in modern football. And this time I won't mention the clubs because they all moved on from what I had written down, with Neymar Jr., Philippe Coutinho, Gabriel Jesus, and of course, Willian to the Brazilian youth national teams. I mean, these are huge names in football, aren't they, Bruno? So you must feel extremely empowered as a scout. For me, it's almost intoxicating as an outsider, knowing that you were behind finding and establishing these great players in international football, because great players they are. I mean, please tell us more about these magical moments and your chance meetings to meet these players, find them, produce them, engage them, turn them into the players they are today. I mean, it's fascinating.
Yes, Lord. That's a good thing, because when I entered the Brazil national team in 2002, between 2000 and 2002, back then nobody really had a organized scouting department. Like, everything was very subjective. There was no data, there was no analysis, there was no even chief scouts. All those words were, we knew about scouts, of course, but inside the national team, everything was done by the coach usually. So when I took over as a manager of football operations, and I had to do all the organization for camps, from training camps, start visiting the clubs with the coach, the youth national team coach, I created a relation, and I always had a good eyes, for players since my early age. And I started improving, developing that, and being able to, in 2002, 2003, start visiting clubs and watching players at U12, U13 years old, such as you said, Neymar, Coutinho, Marcelo from they play for Real Madrid, Willian, Joelinton, who is playing for Newcastle right now, was a player that I brought to the Brazil under-16 national team, playing for Sport Recife. I mean, being able to start benchmarking all those profiles of players, was amazing for me. Why? Because then you start to compare and see who were successful and who wasn't successful. Yes. And most of the time, Lord, it's not only about talent. It's about mentality, mostly. It's about character. It's about behavior. It's about a lot of indicators that we have that we start learning in life. But those things you only learn on a daily basis. That's not something you're going to learn behind a computer. That's something you're going to learn behind, reading a book. It's about feeling and experience those moments. And as I said before, I was very fortunate, to be able to grow on those environments and take those opportunities, really as the opportunity of my life.
Absolutely. It sounds almost like you were given a natural path to decide what you want to do and how you want to coach and manage. So you went out and opened the doors up and did your own work your way, which is fantastic to hear, isn't it? Not following anybody else's philosophy.
And that's something, Lord. And it's a very great point, because I was talking to one of my best friends. Now that I'm on this transitional moment where I know where I want to be and I know where I'm going to go. It's pretty clear, and I'm going to be announcing there was a career plan. But talking to this person, he was like, Bruno, you've been on the game for more than 20 years, 25 years. And when you start shaping yourself and doing things on your way, you create your own way of doing things, right? Of course, I had Branco, who was my mentor, Branco, the former left back for the Brazil national team. Branco was the guy who taught me so many things, working for the national team. He was a sporting director for the Brazil national teams. And I was like, underneath him, learning everything. My dad, and my mom, who taught me all the behaviors and life principles, who were very important for me to carry my career.
Yes.
But now I shape up myself and I know what I want to do, And in life, when you learn and you feel you have, a purpose, then things become easier for you. So now I really feel when I see that my next step, it's going to be a place where I'm going to be able to touch people's life and be able to improve players like I have always done, people around me, and make those people better, right? Using all the experience that I have carried, and of course, also learning from those people. Like, because in life, that's why I'm so passionate about teaching. I'm a lecturer for the Brazil, I'm a lecturer for the Brazil Federation on most, a lot of the courses, and being able to make people better, it's my purpose in life today.
That's a wonderful philosophy. It really is, Bruno. I mean, it just shapes so well with your character and what you've done in life. And it's magical, isn't it? It's fantastic. And you also, in addition, you also served as general manager for the Brazil national team qualifying squad at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. I mean, this experience on international and world stage, I mean, it's something incredible, isn't it? The Olympics as well.
I mean, that's why in life you most of the times, and I'm not talking about religion here because I think the religion is inside ourselves, but in life, most of the times, our time is not the time that God, the universe, whatever, it is, it's their time. So you just got to be ready and for when the opportunity comes, right? And 2006, in December 2006, Branco moved to Fluminense as a sporting director. Branco was a sporting director for the Brazil national team, and I was, the manager of football operations. So when Branco left, we had 3 weeks after the qualifications.
Yes.
Nobody knew was going to be a pre-Olympic. At the beginning, it was only going to be a U20 South American qualification for the U20 World Cup. So Branco left to Fluminense and said, Bruno, you're going to be responsible, just finish the tournament, then you come to work in Fluminense. I was like, that's fine, Branco, no problem. 1 week after Branco left, the president of the Brazilian Federation called me. He said, Bruno, I just left CONMEBOL, who is the, it's like UEFA, CONMEBOL is for South America. I just left CONMEBOL, and the 2007 U20 qualification also is going to become qualification for the 2008 Olympic Games in China.
Yes.
And there is only 2 spots. I was like, President, it's not a FIFA window. Marcelo was playing for Real Madrid, Anderson was playing for Porto, Renato Augusto for Leverkusen, David Luiz for Benfica. I said, all those guys, they're not going to be able to participate. We're not going to have a strong, even though it's Brazil, we're not going to have the strongest team, right? And he said, Bruno, it is what it is. Just go.
Just go. Like, okay. Do your best.
I was 26 years old. Carry, the most winning football nation in the world on my shoulders. The whole Brazilian press. That was the only title that Brazil didn't win until 2016. And of course, we're going to go there after. So, and Brazil hadn't qualified to the 2004 pre-Olympic Games in Greece, right? So it was a lot of pressure to qualify Brazil, right? So to make a long story short, there was like a turning point on my career, Lord, because we had Lucas Leiva as our captain, Leiva, who played for Liverpool. That's another player that I also participate actively on there. He became a good friend. I just spoke to him like last week. Lucas retired now. And he was a captain. Alexandre Pato was like technically the best player we had it. We won the qualification, undefeated. And we qualified to the 2008 Olympic Games. And I was responsible for everything. That was really a turning point on my career for
big
all
story
the that I had on my shoulders, for sure.
Absolutely. And it's a big mantle to have on your shoulders, because we all know Brazil is all about football and expectations, winning World Cups and everything else they enter into, a huge footballing nation. And, much respect for you, really, to be doing that. It's fantastic, Bruno. And of course, following your first stint with the Brazilian Football Confederation, and you did return for a second stint, which we'll talk about a little later. You went to Fluminense Football Club of Serie A in 2007, where you remained until 2011 as general manager of the youth academy and assistant general manager for the first team. So a huge role. How was the transition from Brazilian Football Federation, Confederation, I should say, to the top Serie A national team? Fluminense Football Club is a big club in the Brazilian Serie A, isn't it? It's a massive club.
It's a massive club. They just won Copa Libertadores 3 weeks ago for the first club history. But that's why it was so important. That's why Fluminense it's part of my history. It's a club that became part of my life because when I came to Branco, as I said before, Branco became the sporting director, and I became his assistant, and
Yes.
also academy director responsible for all the youth teams. And I was young, right? Even though I had the experience on everything, I had almost 400 players and 95 employees under my responsibility, plus supporting Branco on the first team, and also restructure a very traditional and centenary club in Brazil. So those 4 years were like amazing. 2007, we won the Brazilian Cup for the first time in club history. We had Thiago Silva. We brought Thiago Silva back from Europe, and we had Thiago Silva, and that's when Thiago Silva really blossomed. 2008, we reached the Copa Libertadores final for the first time in club history. We lost on PKs with 85,000 people in Maracanã. That's why I was so happy and so glad. And I even get emotional because when Fluminense won now in 2023, the Libertadores for the first time, and you don't know how many calls I got from fans, from directors, from everyone saying, Bruno, even though it's passing, 15 years, people are like, Bruno, you're part of this. When you came to the club, that's when things start changing and everything. And then 2009, we reached the Copa Sul-Americana final, also for the first time in club history. And we had an amazing thing in running 2009. Why? 2009, Fluminense had a 99% chance of a relegation with 10 games left. Fluminense had to win 9 out of the last 10 games.
Wow.
That's impossible. Impossible for the outside. So what we did was, myself and Branco said to Cuca, who was the head coach, look, Cuca, we have nothing to lose now. Let's use the kids, mix with Conca, with Freddy, with the experienced guys. We had one of the top 3 academies in Brazil. Fluminense is where Thiago Silva came from, Marcelo, and many other players. And I was doing a very good job with everyone else in the club. Of course, I had a very good core of people in our academy. So we brought us like 6, 7 guys from the youth academy up, and the magic happened. We won 8 games and tied 2. Last game of the season was against Curitiba. We played for the tie. If they beat us, we were relegated. We tied 1-1. Fluminense didn't get relegated.
Wonderful.
The team, there was a case in Brazil. The fans started calling the team of warriors. It became a song, became a music. Why 2009 were so important? Because in 2010, Fluminense won the Brazilian Cup, the Brazilian League, Serie A, after 27 years, 26 years. If there was a relegation in 2009, there was no Fluminense, Serie A championship in 2010. So those 4 years were like unbelievable for my career, unbelievable for my memories, and of course, and that's history, and that's a legacy that we left inside the club.
Absolutely.
Also, we sold more than $80 million, $90 million on players from the academy. So it was an amazing benchmark.
Absolutely right, Bruno, absolutely right. And just so as we all are aware as well, during your time at Fluminense, the 4 or 5 years, Fluminense Football Club also won more than 30 trophies, I understand, in your time there, across all teams, which is quite something. And of course, as you just said, including the 2007 Brazilian Cup, the first time in the club's history, and the 2010 Brazilian National Championship. Fluminense were also runners up in 2008 Copa Libertadores, I think you've already said. So it's quite an incredible part of the football club's history. So it's safe to say, Bruno, really, that you had brought some huge success to Fluminense Football Club, with your brother, of course, older brother in play as well. And I'm sure a real icon now at the club and with Fluminense supporters. I mean, they must absolutely adore you and your brother. You must be, is there a statue going to go up anytime soon inside and outside the ground?
I had a chance in 2019 to go back to the club. I got an invitation from the former president, but I was in MLS working for the San Jose Earthquakes, of course, and I didn't feel it was the right moment for me. But I think the most important when you leave a club is to leave a legacy behind you. And always be very passionate for what we do. And every club I have worked, also in the national team and club wise, I always left everything. I always left my blood, and I am also very quick to turn things around. When I leave, I left, and let's move on for the next challenge, right? And I think that's something that has helped me a lot through my career.
Absolutely right. And of course, we will be expecting statues then at some point of the Acosta brothers outside the ground and inside, huge icons that you both are surely at the club now. I mean, let's just capture just how big Fluminense Football Club are in Brazil. The word Fluminense, as I understand, means native or inhabitant of the state of Rio de Janeiro, which I have to say, Bruno, is on my list of must-visit soon places around the world too. I've not been to Brazil, by the way, and I want to go back. And when I do maybe go, I'll probably try and get to a match at Fluminense. Why not? But the biggest rival that I understand in the Brazilian Serie A is Fluminense versus Flamengo, which goes back to 1911. Yeah, 1911, when a disagreement between Fluminense players led to the formation of Flamengo Football Club. So the so-called Fla-Flu derby, as it's known, is considered one of the biggest in the history of Brazilian football. So with this in mind, Bruno, you must have experienced a Fla-Flu derby on many occasions when at the club. I mean, can you tell us more about the Fla-Flu derby and how these matches tended to play out? Because it's very vibrant in Brazil, isn't it? Massive derby match.
It's crazy because in 2009, when we almost got relegated and we Flamengo won the Brazilian national championship.
Yes.
And the following year we won, and every game we had it was a battle, and Flamengo and Corinthians are two of the biggest clubs in Brazil regarding fan bases. Flamengo has more than 35, 40 million fans. But Fluminense fans are very passionate. They're very linked to the club. Different profiles of fans. But it was amazing games, right? If you have a chance, if you go to Brazil, you must do one thing: go to Maracanã to watch the
Maracanã.
The
Yes.
thing is, they say Flamengo fans says Fla-Flu, and Fluminense fans says Flu-Fla.
Yes, of course they would.
That's how it is.
It's a brilliant bit of history, though, isn't it? I mean, those games must have been absolutely intense to be part of when you were there watching those matches. I mean, absolute intense. Well, that's great, isn't it? It's lovely football to watch, and seeing the fans getting totally involved as well. I mean, and the players reacting. What matches they must be. And we talk about here in the UK, we talk about, Liverpool and Everton matches. You talk about the North London derby, Arsenal, Tottenham, and Chelsea come into that as well to some degree. And, in Scotland, the Glasgow derbies and things like that. But there's nothing on, as far as I can see, the passion that's provided here in the Flu-Flu or Flu-Flo or Flo-Flu derby matches. Well, that's incredible, isn't it? I mean, how many people go to those games? What's the attendances?
Oh, it is. Maracanã, nowadays they hold around 80,000 people. So but back, if you look back in the days, when Maracanã was open, there was no seating, everybody was like standing.
Yes.
Those games used to take more than 130, 140,000 people. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. I seem to remember those stadiums holding 120, 130,000, but of course, health and safety, all-seater stadia decreases it, doesn't it? But still a massive atmosphere. Wonderful grounds. I must go. It's got to be on my list. It really has. To get to one of those matches.
With all the respect, and I tell everyone.
Yes.
If you're working in football, soccer, if you don't go to Brazil or you haven't been in England, you haven't felt the game 100%, right?
Correct.
I mean, of course, England, that's where the game was born. Of course, Brazil, for all the passion and for all the history we have in Brazil.
Yeah, they are the two biggest football nations, really. And that's no disrespect to others like, Italy and Germany and Uruguay.
Argentina, France, everyone. But there is a history behind.
There is. There's an order, isn't there, really? Brazil and England are the stalwarts, really, of international football. It goes without saying. It really does, to be fair. Because after leaving Fluminense Football Club, and a hugely successful time too, you spent a year as the general manager of the youth academy, and assistant general manager of the first team at Figueirense Football Club. I hope I spelt that right, or mentioned that right. Figueirense Football
Yes.
Club, also a Serie A, helping the youth squads win 6 trophies before you returned to Brazilian Football Confederation in 2012. So how was your time at Figueirense Football Club? I mean, being a success there too, Bruno, by the sounds of it.
I mean, was fun. You know, the Brazilian clubs are political, right? On a certain. So in Fluminense, they had things are start changing more nowadays in Brazil. But back, you know, most of the clubs in Brazil, they're associations and they have elections every 3 years, 2 years, depends on the club.
Yes.
So even though in Fluminense we won everything, in December 2010, January 2011, there was a change of president, and I left the club. You know, as a Brazilian champions, right?
Yes.
And it's crazy because I had offers to go to 3, 4 like bigger clubs in Brazil, and Figueirense had just been promoted from Serie B to Serie A, and I was like, man, what am I gonna do? I think I'm gonna go to a new challenge.
Yes.
You know? Let me go to Figueirense. They just got promoted, and
absolutely.
Let's do things different over here, and we did it. You know, the club had for the first time ever, they finished top 6 in the Brazilian league, Serie A. On their first year, like back on
Amazing.
the Serie A, the under 17, they won the Brazilian Cup, you know, for the first time in club history. And I mean, those things, you know, and Figueirense, unfortunately, nowadays, Figueirense is on 3rd division. You know, after I left the club, unfortunately, they were relegated in 2012 and they never went back. So the club had a downturn, but it was an amazing experience. You know, that for sure, you know, as I told you, Lord, in life, you must enjoy the process, right? Sometimes you go to a bigger club, you where you have like the spotlights, you have the fame, you have all those things, but you don't have the freedom to be yourself or to do the things like you want to do it. And that's why I always chant and I always ask to bring me an opportunity to impact the environment that I'm going to be working on. And that's, for me, that's the most important thing. So Figueirense was very important because I brought a player called Wellington Name. That was my player in Fluminense and also the youth national team. He was a promise, but he never had a chance to play for Fluminense first team. He was 19 years old. So I brought him on a loan, and he became Rook of the Year for Brazil Serie A in 2011.
Wow.
You know, playing for Figueirense. After that, he went back to Fluminense, and Fluminense won the league in 2000, the Brazilian Serie A again in 2012. Wow. And he was sold to Shakhtar Donetsk for like $8, $9, $10 million. So those are the things and the moments that really touch our lives, that makes her looking back and see that everything was worth it, right?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And to look back and have those feelings, Bruno, the successes, but also learning from the mistakes as well, is a huge character builder, isn't it? You know, it puts you in a place where you want to be. Say you were brought up well with your parents. You had a famous brother playing for top level football and playing for Brazil as well. I mean, it's a wonderful place to be, isn't it? I mean, it's not a job for you, is it? Really, it must be like it's like a part-time. Well, not part-time, but an enjoyable time in your life. It's not job related.
It's just crazy because I live this so much, Lord, and it's part of my life. That when I met my wife in 2013, Marcela, she always laughed and she always tell people about this, but it's true.
Yeah.
She came to I used to live alone, so first week we're dating, she came to my place for the first time, and there was like balls and jerseys all over the place, and I showed her football, and I told her, look, this is the most important thing for us. This is gonna take us to the world.
Yeah.
So this is my life. Of course, you come into my life right now, but this is part of me. And I told her. Yes. And she understood it. That's why we've been together for 10 years.
Yeah.
But true, of course, you got to balance everything. But look now that pretty much, pretty much ready for my next step, for my next move to work for a new club. I'm already, even without being inside this club yet, because there is some process behind. I'm already suffering, watching the games and feeling that I'm part of the club.
Yes.
And the worst thing is, Lord, I cannot do anything yet. I'm a fan, and I'm just watching from outside. Wanted the team to do well, but on the other side, I cannot impact physically and mentally. I can only chant, for the club to, to keep doing well. And then, but that's how involved I am when I do things.
And that's lovely. You actually you take hold of it, you make it your own, and you want to succeed. That's brilliant. It's a great attribute to have, Bruno. It really is. Fabulous attribute. And of course, in your second stint with the Brazilian Football Federation, I said we'd come on to it, didn't I? You served as the head scout for the Brazilian men's youth national teams and as scout for the men's national team as well. And during this time, you worked extensively in scouting and recruiting for the 2016 Olympic squad, so back into Olympic mode again, and went on to win Brazil's first gold medal in the sport. Another huge achievement, Bruno. You must have felt overawed at that time. Brazil winning a gold medal, football.
There was a twisted feeling on a good way, because when I went to the national team in 2012, that was the first time ever that the Brazil had a full-time scout. It's just crazy to say that, but it's true. And so I became the chief scout for the youth national teams, and of course, I also scout for the full national team, right? But the main goal when I came in 2012 was to start building a database and start working for the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Olympic Games. Why? That was the only title that Brazil hadn't had it. And the Olympic Games was going to be home, was going to be in Brazil. So Brazil was already qualified. So in 2012, I started putting together a database of players born in 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98. Players that under 23 years old that could also, be part. And besides that, you could have three players over the age. So we had to start working, and was an amazing journey. 2012, 13, 14, and 15. 15, we lost the U20 World Cup final to Serbia. I was still working for the national team. But in January 2016, I received the offer to move back to America, and that's when you're going to go now. And I didn't participate in the Olympic Games in July.
Ah, it's a shame.
So that was a thing, but it was my decision to come back to US.
Of course.
But as I said, the most important was all the project, all the legacy, that we made it. And Neymar was the main player for Brazil, and Brazil won 2016. That was an amazing experience. I'm very, even though I was not physically there, was good and very important for me to have help in a certain way, the beginning and the development of this process.
Yeah, you were part of it in the initial stages, weren't you? You were, you didn't finish it off, but you were part of it. You were the building block for that Olympic gold medal. Let's be honest. I think that's probably a fair thing to say, isn't it? Really. I mean, I've got to ask you this, really, Bruno. I mean, did you ever meet the great man himself, Pele?
Yes.
Because, he was a fantastic player, as we all know, probably the best in the world. And he struck up an amazing relationship with Bobby Moore, obviously of England, West Ham and England, particularly in that 1986 World Cup finals in Mexico City. Not 1970, sorry, not 86, 1970 World Cup finals in Mexico City. And they were friends for the rest of their lives. I mean, they sort of struck and put together that lovely relationship between Brazil and English football in a way, didn't they? They sealed that relationship. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
And also, of course, I think the most watched goalkeeper save in the world.
Oh, Banks. Yes, Gordon Banks.
was a header by Pelé that Banks made the save. You know, people,
Remember it well.
if you go to YouTube and check that out, you know, that's
Unbelievable.
just unbelievable.
Well, because Pele was celebrating, wasn't he? He thought, well, that's a goal. And it was. But how Gordon Banks got down to that and pushed it over the bar, that's just a miracle. It's a mystery.
Yeah, it was a miracle, for sure.
I would never see another save like that in the history of football, I'm sure. But after all your massive successes in Brazil, because you had huge successes there, you decided to return to the United States, where you served as the assistant general manager and head of coaching for NASL's Fort Lauderdale Strikers. And in 2016, Fort Lauderdale progressed to round 8 of the US Open Cup for the first time in the club's history, and actually the only non-MLS team to make it to the final rounds of the tournament. Another notable and memorable achievement, Bruno, that, isn't it? You're part of that.
I told you, life usually throw those challenges on my chest, and
now you take them, you grasp them, and make them happen.
And
amazing.
Was unbelievable, because when I decided to leave the federation, people called me crazy.
Yes.
To move back to America, but I knew what I wanted. I want to come back to US. I want to be part of the growing of the game here. I also want to improve certain parts of my, football, management, operations.
Yes.
Career. I knew was going to be important for me, and I'm going to explain why. What's so important. And I gave myself a 3 years timeline to jump in MLS. So after 1 year, working for Lauderdale, we were very successful. The Brazilian Ronaldo was the one who invited me to come. He was one of the owners of the club. And after 1 year, after all the work we did I received the offer to move to San Jose Earthquakes and become the chief scout for the club in the beginning of 2017 in MLS.
Which we're going to come on to now, of course. But before we do, was there any other notable successes at Fort Lauderdale Strikers, apart from getting them to that stage of the National Cup, if you like, for the US Open Cup round 8, which was incredible? Any other successes?
I think there was, the club, our budget was 100 times less, like 10 times less than an MLS club.
Yes.
We were the only second division club to reach the round of 8.
Yeah.
We lost to Chicago Fire in the quarterfinal, but I think it was a statement, and for me it was very important to be able to even though I had to play here, went to college here, and I knew culture-wise America pretty well, was important for me to familiarize and also understand how was the pipeline here. Absolutely.
And of course, no other NASL side has ever done what you achieved with them, with the Fort Lauderdale Strikers. Ever since then, no other NSL side has reached that level.
I think it did it one time, but I don't remember who was it. But I don't know if it was Miami or if it was someone else, but I think someone else. But I remember who was it.
Yeah, it's not very well talked about, I think. So, but yeah, you did well there, didn't you, Bruno, before? And of course, after your time at Fort Lauderdale Strikers, you then did join, as you said, San Jose Earthquakes, known as the Quakes, of course, in April 2017 as the head of scouting. You joined the Quakes with extensive scouting experience, of course, spending almost 2 decades in the Brazilian top flight Serie A and with the Brazilian Football Confederation. And Jesse Fioranelli, I hope I pronounced his name right, Fioranelli stated, and I quote, because I'm always good at my quotes on this show, as we develop a comprehensive player scouting and development program across Quakes teams, Bruno will focus on prospects in Bay Area as much as he will cover the US and select markets in Europe and Latin America. Bruno brings a tremendous amount of experience in identifying talent to the Quakes, and we are fortunate to have him as part of our team. I mean, that is some accolade, isn't it, really, from a great man like that? You are obviously, much sought after talent in the world of international football. So, how was your time at San Jose Earthquakes? And you were there for quite a long time as well, weren't you? You left this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I thought I came to the club on a 2 years contract, right? It was when Jesse hired me. I didn't know Jesse. I went through an interview process with a lot of candidates I didn't know, and there was something that touched me a lot in a good way. On the first day that I met Jesse, when I came over and we were out for lunch, I opened up my laptop and Jesse closed my laptop. And he said, I didn't bring you here to know about your knowledge. I brought you here to know about you as a person, as a man.
Yes.
Because I know you're good. I know. And for me, that's very important. And I'm a very family person. I'm someone very attached to my family. And nowadays we're losing a lot of this. People, we're living in a world where people doesn't care anymore, and there is a lot of bad information also. There is a lot of people also that wanna throw rocks on you,
Yes.
and without and there is no more human relation. People doesn't know how to touch, how to talk, how to, and being a South American, culture wise, we are very, very human relations.
We are, yes.
We like to hug, we like to kiss, we like to embrace. I mean, that's part of our culture, right? And now it's a little bit harder to be yourself, right? And to be able to be a successful manager, to be someone. The human relation, if you see Ancelotti, even Guardiola, all those guys, even Mourinho, all those guys are very into human relation, right? And that's something when I came to the club, that's something that I tried to do inside my environment. I had a very, an amazing person working side by side, who was Alex Covello. He was our director of methodology. He was the one responsible to implement our game audio and how to play in the club. And in football, there is no methodology without scouting, right? They have to walk side by side, because the methodology defines how you play, and the players that you have defines if you can play like that or not, right?
Correct.
So we had to walk side by side. Alex is from Spain. He became a very good friend. And we came to a club who, even though was a very traditional club with 2 MLS Cup, it's a club who was not a high-spending club. So we knew it was very important to work on the development side, academy side.
Yes.
So what I did was I drove like 10, 15,000 miles on my first year in the club, understanding the player profile, understanding the area, visiting clubs, talking to people. Based on that, we create our own style of playing,
Yes.
Based on the players' profiles that we had in the Bay Area and also in Northern California. Became a benchmark, because after 5 years, 2 years became 7 here, after, I decided to move on, last month. But after 5 years in 2020, not even that, in 2020, after only 4 years, we already had 5 players from the academy starting playing for the first team. We became the club in 2022 with more players scout for the youth national teams, US, 12 or 13 players, And this year, on the Guardian list of the 60 best players in the world, under 17, for the first time ever, we had 2 players former in the club on the list. Fidel Barajas, who plays for Mexico under 17 national team, and also Cruz Medina, who plays for the U.S. national team, and also a San Jose Earthquakes Academy player. I mean, being able to produce players, the under 15 national team just had like 2-3 weeks ago.
Yes.
4 players scout for the national team. So Kate Cowell was the youngest player ever, homegrown player to score a goal for the first team at 16 years old. We signed Emmanuel Ochoa, goalkeeper, 14 years old. Nowadays, he's a second goalkeeper for the first team. I mean, There was a lot of good things that happened in the club. And as I said, after 7 years, I felt was the right time, the right moment to move to a new challenge. And that's why in life you got to feel also the time to move on and look for a new challenge.
Absolutely right. Before we come on to your new challenges, I just want to bring out this little part as well, because also, whilst at San Jose Earthquakes, you may well have developed this philosophy beforehand anyway. You drew on your experiences at club and national team level to pick out 5 key identifiers of talent for players in the 14 to 16 age groups, namely, and firstly, whether the player is comfortable on the ball, decision-making, movement, tactical awareness, and body language. I mean, I can understand all of that, and having played football myself, but 5 key factors in assessing players as a scout. I mean, can you elaborate more here, Bruno, on how in practice these 5 key identifiers work with you and in your space?
I mean, Lord, as I said, for me to be a top sporting director, to be a top, first team manager, coach,
yes,
football player, to become a successful, and that's my opinion, it's fundamental that you know about youth development foundation, yes, and agreed, being able to learn, to do like my elementary school, middle school, high school, go to university, do my master's degree. I'm just comparing all those things, on the youth development side.
Yes.
That kept it up myself a lot, and that's how I came up. But those things, those are logic things for whoever is on the game. But as I always say, Lord, PowerPoint takes anything. Computer takes anything. You can put in pictures, you can put in words, you can do whatever you want it. Yes. But experience, that's on you. Knowledge, my mom always told me, and experience. Someone can come here now and take my cell phone, can take my watch, they can take everything. But they cannot put a gun on my face, on my head, and take my knowledge, my experience they can't.
So true, right? So true.
And that's where knowledge is the most important thing, and experience. Learn how to lose, learn how to win.
Quite agree.
Being able to understand, and to act on the lows and also on the highs. When you lose doesn't mean everything is good. When you lose doesn't mean everything is bad, and also when you lose doesn't mean everything. When you win doesn't mean everything is bad. You got to find those balance, and that's the hardest thing in life, to find those balance. Because sports in general, they're very emotional. We lead with people, and I'm someone very emotional. That's a part of myself that I had to work a lot, even for my health, because I live so much what I do, and be able to meditate, being able to chant, being able to have something to look for has helped me a lot, right? And also helps me to go on those. And when I'm analyzing a player, I close my eyes a lot of the times, and I start seeing, why that play is so important, why the way he moves, the way he touches the ball, the way he behaves himself when they're losing, the way he behave themselves when they're winning, the way he behaves himself when he's sub off. How do they play home? How do they play away? How do they play under adversity? How do they react? How do they play under pressure? There is a lot of composure, physical composure. Physical is how does he move? How is his decision making? Because when you say physical, doesn't mean to be the fastest one, but also being the smartest one, the one that moves better, the one that reads the game better. So there is a lot of key points you must understand, on the game.
Absolutely, and they're very good points indeed. But you're quite rightly saying, Bruno, that knowledge is power. It is. Knowledge is power. And as a sportsman, to be able to lose in a nice way, gracefully, you'll become a graceful winner as well, won't you? You'll be a better winner by losing in a nice way too. Learning from losing creates you a better winner, I think, over time. Generally in life, not just in football, but all sports. In fact, in life generally. A lot of people have said to me over the years, Russell, they said, are you sure you're English? He says, because you're a very passionate, emotional man as well. You must have some Latin in you somewhere. And I probably do, so I do have that passion in me as well, particularly about winning and also with people. It's all about having that kindness for people, isn't it? And learning about people, learning how they tick. So, and you obviously have that, because you're teaching these players at young age, 14 to 16, how to become better players and how to become better people. So all credit to you, really, to be honest. It's a fantastic attribute. It really is. So congratulations on that. It's brought you all your success, Bruno, over these years.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, you have only just left San Jose Earthquakes, as we said earlier, after 5 or 6 years and a successful time there, to take on a new project or projects. So can you elaborate more on your next footballing journey? I know you're off to Portugal this week.
Yeah, I'm flying
Wonderful part of the world.
I'm flying to Portugal today, just to visit some people and also visiting some clubs, watching some games.
Yes.
I've been analyzing some projects, so hopefully next week or so I'm gonna have some good news, and I believe I'm already kind of working behind the scene, having this freedom to
Yes.
moving around, understanding how the game is moving, understanding, because the thing is, Lord, when you're out, you open up your mind a little bit more, you spread your ideas, and that helps you to make the best decision. I want to go to a place or to a club where I'm going to be able to keep growing. I know it's the time for me to go back and either become a sporting director or technical director on a club, and also be able to to help
in Europe, in Portugal.
Been in Europe, can be in Brazil, can be in MLS, so everything is open right now. So
open.
I've been talking to some clubs, to some people. There is some proposals on the table, so I'm open now. I'll either
England?
go back to England. I have a lot of relations in England, a lot of people.
Premier League.
I mean, as I said, I'm just pretty open, listening, and understanding, because I want to choose the best project for me, and then for nowadays. Fortunately, that's something I'm looking for.
And take your time too, Bruno. I think time's a perfect thing, isn't it, here? Don't jump into anything too soon. You've got huge culture behind you, history, success. You're much sought after. Yeah, the choices, the options will be given to you, won't they? And it's down to you then to make the right choice about what you do next. Whether it's one project or more than one project, multiple projects, why not?
Sure.
Enjoy the moments. More success.
That's what it is. You gotta enjoy the process, enjoy the moment, and of course nowadays I have a family, have a wife, have a kid, so all of those things are also fundamental for me on the next step I'm going to make it.
Correct, absolutely right. And putting the family first is important, as well as putting your profession forward. So I welcome those comments. Absolutely brilliant, and I'm sure you'll be a huge success wherever you end up, wherever you go. That's always the case, I'm sure, because having read all about you and put this series together, this podcast together, it's been wonderful. It's wonderful learning about your success. Really has been, and a real pleasure to put this show together. But as always, we've almost done an hour, pretty much on the hour, and it's one of those things. This show goes so quickly, Bruno, you can't believe, and it's been a great show. We've talked about so many lovely things. But as always on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show, we could talk forever, Bruno, about your life as an international football scout, and of course, your life in football in Brazil, America, Europe, within the top leagues. So thank you, Bruno, for coming on to the show and talking about your professional life in football around the world. It's been a huge pleasure, as always. And as always, as I say on the show, the pleasure is all mine. And of course, the show's audience, when the podcast is released on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show in the next day or so. So, thank you, Bruno. I know as I'll do this recently. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you Bruno Costa a big round of applause. Fantastic, absolute gentleman. Thank you very much for spending your time and coming onto the show and sharing your life in football with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. It really has. I hope you've enjoyed the experience too.
Appreciate it, Lord. Appreciate the invitation. It's my pleasure, and whoever follows me, just can follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. I'm always posting,
absolutely
things about the game. Thanks for the opportunity, and I keep you posted about my next challenge.
Oh, please do. Yeah, we're linked up now anyway, Bruno. So, stay in touch, keep in touch. I'm sure there'll be other things we can talk about at some stage in the future. It'll be an amazing journey. So let's do that. Let's stay in touch. So thank you very much. Do hang on for a little bit. I'm just going to close up now, Bruno, and then if you have a quick chat afterwards, as always, just to tail off. That'd be lovely. The next episode on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show is You Are the Ref, where my special guest will be Keith Hackett, the former English Premier League referee. Keith, who began refereeing in local leagues in Sheffield, South Yorkshire area around about 1960, Keith Hackett is counted amongst the top 100 referees of all time in a list maintained by the International Federation of Football History and Statistics. Keith stepped up to the ultimate domestic honour in the 1981 FA Cup final at Wembley, finishing 1-1 between Spurs and Manchester City, causing the game to go to a replay, which Keith Hackett also refereed at Wembley. Internationally, Keith was a match official also at the 1988 European Championships, in which he took charge on control of West Germany's 1-1 draw with Italy in Group A at the Rheinstadion. Keith Hackett also officiated at the 1988 Olympic football tournament, handling the semi-final between Brazil and West Germany, which Brazil won on penalties following a 1-1 draw. And of course, I'm looking forward to seeing you all on the inside. So until then, it's au revoir from him and au revoir from me.